All right, I'm here today with Bradley Zastrow, the Director of Business Development for the Dash Core team. How's it going, Bradley?
Very well, thanks. How are you, mate?
I'm doing very well. It's a great day to a lot of exciting things happening in the Dash ecosystem. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so speaking of which, how did you first hear about Dash? What got you involved in Dash? It's kind of an interesting spot for people to end up in either the business world in general or even in the cryptocurrency field. So what got you into Dash? How'd you get here?
It's a good question. I think, as many people know, my background's with American Express. I've been with them for about 17 and a half years. And it was really, I would say, last year that I really started looking into crypto more serious. I'd known about it for a while, maybe played with it a little bit, but I didn't, as they would say, dive deeper. That really happened last year. And as I dug deeper, it was what really fascinated me was not so much the concept of a store of value, but rather the utility and business applications that coins could bring to just generically the business world. As I looked deeper, the one coin that really stuck out as far as objectively what I felt had the greatest recipe for long-term success was Dash. Through the product, through the way we're run, with the DAO and the governance structure, the funding model, as well as the product itself. All three of those were really exciting to me. And wanting to also move into a space where I can make a real difference was also extremely attractive to me. So when I put that kind of together, to me, at least, it felt like a real natural fit. And again, it was just something that wanted to dive in head first and see what we can do.
Yeah, you mentioned making a difference. What does that mean for you? Because a lot of people, it's like cryptocurrency is a thing, it's out there. And Dash is a thing, it's a tool, it's out there. And different people have different motivations for seeing its potential. So how does Dash make a difference for you personally? What excited you about that?
You know, I, it's a good question. It's I get at its highest level, it's Dash is about freedom for money or freedom of your money, which resonates with me very much personally, for a variety of reasons. But I think even as you dive a little bit deeper, what I see is, for example, underbanked or unbanked industries, where you've got a morality imposed by the banking industry for certain industries, and thus creates obstacles or friction for them. Cannabis industry would be a perfect example where we see that. I see us making a real difference in there because of, again, our approach, and again, the way the DAO it works, the way we are governed. We can make those type of decisions that legacy banks or the legacy financial industry can't do. The other side is, of course, particularly around, call it distressed markets, maybe for lack of a better word, but markets like Venezuela, markets like Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, where people are, in some ways, you could look at it, extreme are unfairly taxed through the extraordinarily high inflation that they incur. I can't imagine being in a situation where my paycheck from the moment I receive it to the moment I deposit it dissolves in value, or in an environment where I might have X amount of dollars in my bank account, but I'm not allowed to actually withdraw it or spend it or use it. So, very much on that real people level, we can make a difference in a lot of these markets where maybe it's not an impact to me, but where I feel personally great pride in being able to offer those types of solutions to individuals in that circumstance.
Yeah, so it sounds like this is an interesting contrast with the old financial system. And now
Very
that's the
much.
thing with cryptocurrency happens to be have gotten its start with a lot of sort of crazy, rowdy cypherpunk type people that view the banksters, as they call colloquially are called, as
Yeah.
the enemy. And there's a certain kind of skepticism towards the current financial system. So first off, how does that how's that experience been coming from the old financial world to what some view as the antithesis to that? And is there a sort of sense among your former world and colleagues that this is a betrayal of any kind, or something different?
I, let's see. With my colleagues, it's funny. There's definitely no sense of betrayal. I would say they're extremely interested, and in some ways, maybe maybe a few are slightly envious. And I guess the reason for that is, twofold. Any large bank or financial institution, you're going to be limited to the impact you can make. And I think people in general, from a career point of view, want a sense of ownership, want a sense of making a difference, and also want a sense of positivity, I guess, in what they do. So in that respect, when I explain what we're doing with Dash, and as I mentioned, around underbanked or unbanked individuals, industries, et cetera, that's what actually, it excites a lot of them as well. I'm sure there's definitely some that look at it and say, well, this is a fad, you're never going to do it. But you know what? That's what they said about Amazon. That's what they said about, Facebook. That's what they, dot, 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 right? There's so many examples of that. So I think I'm looking forward to proving people wrong.
Yeah. Now there is a certain, because cryptocurrencies are very community-based types of things, being distributed networks, there is a kind of disconnect between sometimes what the community perceives and maybe what the core team is actually working on. And so what in general is Dash's business development strategy going forward? Like, what is the biz dev department up to that the community should kind of know about?
No, it's a good question, and in our next quarterly call, I'll be taking the community at large through it as well. Just unfortunate with the recent WebEx issues, but if we take a step back, Dash really has four customers. We've got our users, which are the everyday transactors spending Dash. We've got our merchants offering point of sale services to those users. We have businesses, which are the ones providing B2B or B2C kind of payment solutions or integrations. And then, of course, we've got developers who are innovating and bringing the technology to a larger population. BizDev specifically focuses on really that middle layer, which is around businesses and merchants. And what we're going to be doing is working with them in kind of one of three ways. We've got a that people are used to, reaching out, bringing partners into the Dash ecosystem. But then what I'm building as well is a business integration solution. So I see great opportunity in us linking together a lot of our, kind of partner network to create kind of, a single comprehensive solution that we can go and attack big opportunities, legacy opportunities, or industries rather, and that sort of thing. And then the third kind of way we'll work with them is, for example, on individual merchants, where we don't have the scale, say of like American Express, thousands of salespeople around the globe working with one-on-one merchants. Because we don't have that scale, we need to still find a way to service individual merchants in a way that allows them to accept Dash. And that'll be around how do we create a kind of a, whoops, one second. Sorry about that. Kind of a streamlined self-directed process. And that can take a couple of different flavors. Sometimes if they're technical, obviously how they can implement that way. Or again, bringing that back into our partnership network. We've got partners such as, say, a GoCoin, that offer those type of merchant integrations. And how do we, again, refer some of these merchant partners back to individuals who specialize as well in that type of business? So that'll be the three key ways that we'll work with partners moving forward.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of different applications for cryptocurrency and Dash in general. And what do you see as the low-hanging fruit? What's like the easiest kind of business or merchant or service provider that's just a supernatural fit to just jump in and get on Dash?
The easiest, probably most lowest hanging fruit, I'll put an asterisk on it still, but has got to be at this point any business that solely relies on BTC. We all know the challenges that brings in using BTC at the point of sale. It doesn't work. And so anyone that is only accepting BTC is under enormous pressure. Especially if they're already operating, say, a thin margin business. That's where we can clearly offer a much superior value proposition. And we've seen that, for example, with Bitcart as one example, where they were BTC only, and now they've gone to Dash. Sometimes, depending on that business's strategy, it may not be as low-hanging fruit, but generally speaking, that's where we can usually make a pretty quick difference, because additionally, the integration is easier since we're a fork of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Have you found much resistance with this low-hanging fruit on people that say, yeah, but what about Bitcoin Cash? What about Litecoin? What about whatever other cryptocurrency other than Dash? Does that tend to be a thing, or is it usually easy to make the pitch on why Dash works for these low-hanging fruit type businesses?
It's interesting. I think it's easy to make the pitch around Dash. I think sometimes there's not maybe a clear understanding of, say, some of the benefits. So there's a education element with the conversation. I think them going exclusive with Dash is sometimes where it becomes a little bit more difficult. One, because sometimes they're getting burned at the moment by being exclusive BTC. So I can understand where they're perhaps a little hesitant to, again, put all their eggs in one basket. And also, too, depending on their customers, maybe their customers do want to spend in other coins. So I think it's the exclusivity part can sometimes be a little bit more just challenging of a conversation, but the overall inclusion in a larger, say, crypto basket is where that conversation is much easier.
Now, what about the tough nut to crack? What's the one kind of business that is either just absolutely not interested, usually in Dash, or just is possibly interested, but it's just too much of a nightmare to get anything meaningful done, and then they just don't want to do it?
From an industry point of view, the exciting opportunity, but to your point, the extreme, maybe the more difficult is definitely around, say, the banking and financial industries. And that's really coming from, they're already restricted through heavy regulations. Many of them differ by, obviously, country to country. So you've got a network of all these different rules that you're playing with, and particularly then if that bank's in multi nations, or if they're a global bank or global financial institution, makes it even more complex. So it's not to say that they're not interested or that there's no opportunity. I mean, I think that there is some potential there, but that's where it's going to be a real slow burn. It's not, that's multi-year potentially conversations to get those players on board. But I think at the same time, it's good to start planting seeds where we can, and again, try to nurture it and see where we can grow with some of those.
Now, where I'm standing, I'm always running into a bunch of Dash investors, fans, users, whatever, that tend to be very energetic about Dash. Either they're excited and want everyone to use it, they want to use it everywhere, or there's that kind of, if we don't work hard, we're going to be left behind by all these other coins. But either way, there's a lot of energy to get as many businesses, services, merchants, whatever, using Dash as possible. And of course, we have this divide now where we have a bunch of energetic, enthusiastic fans who could sort of spread the good word of Dash, but then the next step is they don't know what to do. And that's kind of where you come in. So how do you see the community? How do you see community working with you the best? What do you think is the best way? How community energy around this can be the most useful to you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's something I think community involvement, I think, is really important. I think we've seen some of that already on a few things that, that potentially can grow grow much larger. The best way to, I guess, engage with me is if you do see an opportunity, is to send me an email. We may also, I guess I'll preface this by saying, you know, we may also refine this process, obviously, as my team builds out and that sort of thing. It may not be necessarily myself, but I guess for the time being, help me understand the value in the merchant, I guess would be my best word of advice, so to speak. So if someone reaches out to me on email and says, hey, look, I think XYZ company is a really good opportunity, help me understand why. I may not see things the same way someone else does, but, you know, if a different lens is always good. So if they say, well, this 3 reasons or why, this is what they're doing, and this is kind of what they're about, that helps me also in you know, prioritizing that with other conversations and things along those lines. I think the most challenging way to engage with me is just to say, hey, this company looks great, go attack them. That's great, and it might be a good opportunity, but then what that's going to require is for me to research it, for me to understand it, for me to figure out who I can contact within the company, ... And that's just going to take a lot longer time. And again, it has to fit with the prioritization. So more information you can provide me on opportunities ends up being much better.
Yes. Do you see any kind of a difference in the way business development is going to work from before Evolution's platform gets out and after? Like, is there a kind of a little bit of an on hold attitude until then, or is there, is it going to be just business as usual from now until after then and after, or is there going to maybe be business as usual now and then a different way of approaching things, a different strategy once we have the Evolution platform out?
That's a really good question. I think the short answer is definitely nothing's on hold. We're finding the 25th hour in a day and working hard to achieve that. At a high level, the business strategy will still definitely be the same as far as how we you know, the 3 pillars I'd mentioned of how we're working with merchants and businesses, you know, and again, the account management function that we'll be providing to key partners, the marketing and promotion across all those 3 pillars, all of those elements will not change with Evolution. I think what Evolution will do, and what I'm really excited about it, is I almost view it as we're creating a Dash app store. We're creating an iTunes for Dash, if you will, and having this closed loop of an ecosystem where people can onboard, where people can then use fiat to pay for or purchase Dash, and then go and find different merchants. All in one is going to be incredibly powerful. So I think what will happen is, as that starts to be released and we get closer to that release, the way we engage with merchants will change, because now it's the value proposition that we offer has now obviously been expanded and improved. And I guess it'll be more that tactical way we work with partners is really what's changed. But the overall strategy will still stay the same.
So more than just selling a payment solution at that point, it'll be selling inclusion into an ecosystem. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned selling. It's one thing that came about really clear in some of my early partnership discussions when I came on board. I'm not actually selling anything. I'm actually creating business solutions for pain points within the payment space for our partners. As a result, I look at it almost as we're taking a consultative approach to how we can solve these types of problems. And as a result, I'm going to be changing the team name. We're not going to be business development, but we'll be business solutions, because I want that hyper focus on what is it that we do. And it isn't about the selling. It's about working with our partners, solving their pain points, and then moving on, nurturing that relationship through marketing, promotion, and adding value back to them. So that's what I'm really excited about as I build out my team.
So it sort of end with a philosophical bit. It's been said about cryptocurrency in general that it's a solution in search of a problem. Now, Dash is clearly a high-powered solution in a lot of ways. Has it found its problem?
Absolutely. And I think almost what's best is Dash is almost the flip side, you know, in the sense that there's a problem in the payment space. There's a problem with speed. There's a problem with, call it just generically security, whether that's fraud or theft. There is problems with just fees in general. Anyone that's sent a wire transfer or anytime you take a credit card and spend it in a country that's not your own, you're being charged a 3% fee plus a, shall we say, not advantageous FX spread, or at least not from the consumer's perspective, let alone the merchant fees and things of that nature for the acceptance of that card on the merchant side. Those are problems in the payment space. And I think historically, we being also businesses have just accepted that as BAU. We solve those problems. So I think what's happening now is people kind of awakening to the fact of, wait a minute, I'm actually kind of getting ripped off here. I don't need to pay 3% for the privilege of using my credit card overseas and then get screwed on the FX rate. And then the merchant also then getting hit with another 2 to 4% to accept the card. And then to take 3 to 5 days, whatever it is, for the merchant to actually get the money, that whole process. I think that's where people are now awakening and saying this is a problem. And Dash provides that solution. You know, instant send features were near Visa-like, transaction speeds. Obviously, the costs of the transaction, less than a penny, less than, what are we, about 8 cents maybe for an instant send right now. Along with obviously the security, we're double spend proof, et cetera. We are the solution to those pain points, which is great. We're not like other cryptos where we're trying to find a problem to solve. We are the solution.
Sounds like Dash has a laser focus then of where it's going in the future. It's not going to be a changing product that kind of evolves over time in mission. It's not going to be something that is out there and just sort of waits for the market to decide what it's good for. It's already figured out what it's good for, and it's going straight towards that.
100%. I like to say we're next generation form of payment. We're 2.0, if you will, and completely agree. Laser focus on that sense. We're not an investment coin. We're a form of payment.
That not an investment coin, a form of payment. I'm sure that's a welcome bit of wisdom in the crypto space now that's so highly speculative. Well, thanks very much for this has been a very enlightening chat, and thanks very much for taking the time with me.
No, thank you very much, Joel. It's been great chatting with you as well. And yeah, look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Yep, absolutely. I hope you have a good one.
Hey, cheers, mate. You too.